What's poppin' pimps? My name is Charius, and welcome to the latest episode of The First Sip, a series where I take a look at the early couple hours of a game, give you some first impressions, and some opinions on what I see. Today we have Assassin's Creed Shadows in the big 2025, and I'm first of all very thankful to Ubisoft for sending out the code to give me a chance, and some other viewers a chance of course, to look at the game early and see what we have in store for us this time around. Now a little bit of background about me. I've personally been a huge Assassin's Creed fan, but not necessarily a huge Ubisoft fan. Now, of their franchises, Assassin's Creed is the biggest and the highest on my list. Now, I do love me some Splinter Cell. I do love me some Tom Clancy, right? I've been a long-time gamer for many, many years. Not that many, but not to date myself, but you get what I'm saying. Been here for a while, love me some Assassin's Creed. So finally seeing Shadows come to life, even with the delays, has been something interesting to witness and more interesting to experience. So when I walked into the game this time around, after playing the early access version a couple months ago, honestly, I had at least hoped for just a little bit of improvement, and from there, we can see what we make of it. But before we get any further, I just want to say that I will be streaming the game live Tuesday, March 18th, which is the time that the game should be releasing, at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where you can see the game full and live to form your own opinions about the game after seeing some gameplay review footage from other reviewers and myself. Hopefully, I'll see you there on this stream at youtube.com/Charius or twitch.tv/Charius with an underscore at the very end. Hope to catch you there, but for now, let's get into everything else what the game has to offer. This time around, all the footage you see was captured locally on my Xbox Series X, playing at 4K 120 to make sure that I had the crispiest and the best resolution possible while trying to play this game. I personally always prefer to play on performance mode, regardless of what game it is, only because these days, quality mode usually includes a lot of ray tracing, rendering, global illumination techniques, which means that developers will typically limit the game to 30 frames per second, unfortunately, or 45, 40 in some cases. But in this case, I like me a smooth 60 frames per second, and I'm sure a lot of people can agree. Hopefully you enjoy what you see as far as footage goes, but there will be a mixture of both my own footage and Ubisoft's B-roll footage provided as well during this video. So of all the places to start, I like to start with probably the easiest thing to make commentary on, which is the story, right? What really drives and propels a narrative forward to keep you immersed into the game, right? Because some people get immersed from the ambiance of the environment that's in the game. Some people get immersed by dialogue choices, but some people, like myself, really just love a good narrative. So what does that narrative look like? Well, in Assassin's Creed Shadows, well, I guess let's take a step back. If you played Odyssey or Origins or Valhalla, or even Mirage at that point, your setup will feel somewhat familiar. That some group of masked unknown criminals / nobles / individuals have performed some great wrong on the main character. And from there, you really just watch the main character go and seek revenge. They'll try to unfold some sort of big sinister plot affecting the country or countries, depending on the game, right? And from there, Shadows really distinguishes itself a little bit through Naoya specifically and her intentions. She doesn't start out as an assassin in training, although there's been a few games like that so far, and really she just starts off as a territorial defender of sorts. Really what grabs her and ensnares her into the overall plot of what's going on in the country starts from that point specifically. As for Yasuke, his intentions for joining Naoya are best left unspoiled. However, once the two of them actually do unite, the game fully opens up from there, allowing you to traverse the entire land and do whatever you want with either of the two characters seamlessly, encountering and engaging with any story missions with either of the two. Obviously, there will be a little bit of specificity with certain side activities and little exploration activities that you can get into that are specific to each character, but those will be coming up in the next section of this video. Again, story is a good starting place for this game. Now, in Assassin's Creed Shadows, we see a return of dialogue choices. Now, in past Assassin's Creed, in the few most recent ones at least, you could see dialogue choices as a way of giving players freedom, of giving them control over what their version of the character would look like. What does their Cassandra say in this situation? What does their Eivor say in response to being, harassed or being joked on or whatever the case is, right? Being threatened in some cases. In this game, both Naoya and Yasuke have the opportunity to say what they want in your hands, meaning you can decide exactly how aggressive you want Yasuke to be or how soft-spoken you want Naoya to be, or the opposite for each of the two characters. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I pick what to say? Meaning essentially, does it matter in the end? In the end of everything, what does it matter that I say if A, my dialogue choices don't change the story or the quests in the game for that matter, or B, in the grand scheme of things, none of it really is canon. Nobody knows what it means in the end to say I played Assassin's Creed Shadows, or even worse, where does Assassin's Creed Shadows fit into the overall timeline of Assassin's Creed games? As far as canon goes in this game, Ubisoft has introduced a setting where you can check a box and basically say, I don't want to choose anything in the game. I don't want to make any dialogue choices. And from there, the game will pick the canon choices for you, therefore giving you the canon, official Ubisoft seal of approval, what happens in the story for Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, this obviously means you're going to get one specific ending and there isn't really any leeway, but it means you get the canon ending. So when people ask the questions, what occurred during the events of Shadows, yes, you can say, well, my Yasuke did this and my Noe decided to do this and I killed this person and I spared this person, but there will be a right answer now and a wrong answer. The other part is that dialogue choices now do actually affect your quest outcome, or at least how your quest progresses. In past games, you could say something like, oh, no, that doesn't work with me. And you immediately go into a fight, for example, when somebody tries to rob you and you have the option to either give them your money or to not give them your money. And you would say, oh, I'm not going to give you my money. Therefore, fight ensues. In this game, there are more nuanced conversation topics. For example, you have the opportunity to lie. And lying, of course, is going to be something that is both conditional, meaning in the example that I had when I played the game, I was given the chance to lie to somebody and they tested my knowledge to see if I really knew what I was lying about. Now, in my example, I 100% failed that knowledge check, and so that turned the quest into a chase after the enemy and execute them for the item that I was looking for. But to see that it played out where the characters tested my knowledge means that there was a potential pathway where I could have lied and played it off and succeeded and got them to believe whatever story I was selling them. That is a departure from the previous dialogue choices in Assassin's Creed. Again, this probably wouldn't occur if you play the canon ending for whatever the game provides for you, but it is an option that's now available to you when you go and make these choices on quests that you have in the game. So let's talk about some gameplay. Now, in Assassin's Creed, I'm going to break that down into a couple different categories: combat and exploration. Now, with combat, I'll just, as a funny note to start off with, peasants and vagabonds and whatever you might call them will definitely try you as you ride around in Japan. And I just mean try you as in it's not really obvious why they think they have a chance of knocking you off your horse when they react at the speed of, well, I was gonna say speed of sound, but it's quite the opposite, right? That was always entertaining to see. But more importantly, one-tap assassinations where an enemy can get killed by just hitting a button are indeed back, baby. Now, normally you would only be able to pull this off on enemies that are the same level. Obviously, being a game that revolves around RPG elements like your level and damage output and, DPS and things like that. Normally, in the last few games, if you were the same level or higher level than an enemy, you would get a guaranteed assassination. Obviously, that is going to be not the case by normal settings when you play the game. As in enemies with armor, you won't be able to kill in one assassination attempt. Enemies that are higher level than you or have the skull icon for that matter definitely can't be killed in one assassination button attempt. So that's always going to be something to keep in the back of your mind. But, and I mean this as a big W for Ubisoft, if you go into the settings and you go find the setting for guaranteed assassination, you will find that now any enemy can be taken out with an assassination as long as you catch them off guard. No longer will enemies outright deny your assassination attempts just because they're on alert or just because they're 15, 20 levels higher than you, right? But now you can kill any enemy. Elite class enemy, peasant class enemy, general class enemy, it doesn't matter. Every enemy can catch this blade in the night as long as you catch them off guard. And this, I think, is a shout out to the community for making it very clear and very obvious we want to be able to actually assassinate enemies again. And I'm here for it. W Ubisoft for listening to the community. With that out of the way, stealth in the game is completely going to change up in this game versus how it was done in other games. Obviously, you've seen in preview footage or gameplay footage that you can go completely prone, meaning that you can now crawl along rooftops, crawl through the grass and bushes and anything that you might see inside of Assassin's Creed Shadows. But the difference here is that when you're crawling or when you're crouching walking around, you can do extra little things like knocking over books, knocking over lanterns, and everything you touch and everything you knock over, or if you just crouch and move too fast while crouching, you make noise. And this noise actually plays a role in stealth in the game, as in enemies now hear you and they'll turn around or they'll turn their head, which will start that little warning yellow symbol that, hey, an enemy is looking at me and starting to become suspicious of me. Now, personally, I think the ideal way to play Assassin's Creed Shadows with regards to stealth at least is going to be going into settings, leaving your gameplay difficulty option for combat at normal, but the difficulty option for stealth Set that to expert. In this setting, you can no longer be on rooftops without being spotted, enemies aren't laughably blind in the daytime, and the smallest things, like I mentioned previously, will trigger audio cues for patrols when you're in a place that you aren't really supposed to be. This is the ideal way, I think, to play Assassin's Creed Shadows and fully realize the Assassin's Creed assassin fantasy, essentially. And I'm glad that it's here in the game. So let's talk about exploration, and there is a lot to talk about here. Now, naturally, being a Ubisoft game, we are going to see the return of viewpoints in Assassin's Creed Shadows. And this time, Assassin's Creed Shadows viewpoints on various forts and cities and high-rise locations are going to be auto-triggered. So that little animation that you get when you get to the top of viewpoint and typically press triangle or Y, depending on your platform, and you see that 360-degree kind of vista overview of the surrounding areas that opens up the map for you a little bit, that is automatically triggered now when you climb up to the top of that viewpoint, saving you, I guess, a couple button presses over the course of the game probably, but not really anything to write home about, just that you get a little bit of a quality of life improvement. Now, naturally, as you're exploring the world and running around as either Nae or Yasuke, you can save citizens that are being oppressed as you travel and turn them into scouts for you to help pin mission objectives down on the world map. Now, if you haven't seen any early gameplay before, scouts in this game are what you use to try and nail locations, or at least a general area for where the next mission objective is going to be. When you get a mission in Assassin's Creed Shadows, it's similar more to Valhalla, where you get a series of descriptions of where the next mission objective is supposed to be, whether it's a person to talk to, an item to retrieve, so on and so forth. You never really get the exact location, you only get a description. It's near this fort, it's west of this city, it's south of these people, right? Something of that nature. Now, with scouts, the scout system, as I displayed before in a previous video, utilizes the ability to kind of pick and choose where you want to explore on the map using these scouts. And if you're right with where the location is for the next mission objective, the scouts will indicate exactly that location using a blue mission icon on the map. Now, personally, I think this is really clever and a good utilization of both the mission objective and a new game mechanic to make it still accessible for players to go and find where they need to go next. That way, it isn't just a player running around in circles and where they think is the right area. Now there's a system to actually locate it and still mark it on your map as an icon. Now, scouts are not unlimited in that you only have a set amount of them that you can use when you start the game. And of course, your capacity increases as you go, but scouts are going to be essentially refreshed every time that you have to fast travel and change the seasons in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, it should be noted that season changes in Assassin's Creed Shadows aren't going to happen every time you fast travel, but just that you're able to fast travel and progress forward towards the next season change. Now, fast traveling can be done from different viewpoints between each other, as has been the case in past Assassin's Creed games, but now there are little mini dens that serve as mini bases of operations in the game as well. So these little dens will be another location that you can use and you can fast travel to get to your mission objectives faster. As you're exploring and fast traveling and using your scouts and refreshing them, you're going to come across some mini games and activities that you can get up to with each character. Both Naoya and Yasuke, as I mentioned previously, have specific mini games that they can do, and both characters, of course, share the opportunity to paint animals in the wild. Now, random exploration can lead also to quest items ahead of time. So if you're going around knocking down the forts and clearing objectives for separate forts, for example, in a castle, there's going to be some quest item you didn't know that was there. Your character, whether Nae or Yasuke, will indeed put it into their inventory and note that this is something they should keep for later. Very handy and a good quality of life improvement to know that you can just get to those things earlier and they don't spawn only when you get the quest. That's a bit of a nitpick thing that I have personally with games, and I'm glad to see it addressed here in Assassin's Creed Shadows. And fast traveling, while we're at it, is not just a black screen or the Animus projection screen. You get an actual legitimate mini cutscene with a rendered example of what the season changing is doing to the environment of Japan. You'll see snow melting, you'll see leaves falling, so you know exactly what kind of ambiance you're leaving and what kind of ambiance you're entering. And as you're entering and leaving these ambiances, it must be noted that you do have a day-night cycle. So there will be nighttime, morning, dusk, dawn, the full thing with Assassin's Creed Shadows, and enemies honor this night and day cycle. That is to say, certain locations will be more active during the day or more active during the night, and guards that are on patrol at a castle in the day may be asleep at nighttime. And so when they're asleep at nighttime, you can imagine that your attempt to explore an area or to take out enemy guards is going to be a lot easier. So let's talk about audio in Assassin's Creed. Now, there's definitely going to be two types of audio to consider in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Obviously, you're going to have environmental audio, sound effects, things of that nature, right? And this checks all the normal boxes. Immersive, 3D, I can hear enemies running to my left, I can hear things happening to my right, all the bells and whistles essentially that you could ask for in a game like Assassin's Creed Shadows, AAA level, right? Now, the second part is going to be dialogue, your narrative, your character line delivery. And I gotta say, for most of the game, 80 to 90% nails it. Now, I wanted to give the English dub a chance for Assassin's Creed Shadows because naturally all the American preview footage, all the American gameplay had English as the dub, but definitely with some accents involved. We're in Japan, the people are going to be speaking with Japanese accents. Or in the case of Yasuke and those who came with him in the earliest part of the game, they're going to be speaking Portuguese, right? So they have Portuguese accents. I jumped over from the English dub over to immersive mode, which we'll go over in a second, because of one specific character. One specific character made me hear the voice and go, nope, I don't want to hear English anymore. I'm not going to tell you who that is, just in case that it doesn't bother you, but one character made me change over immediately. And so since then, I've been playing for the rest of my 20 hours in the game that I've played so far on immersive mode. This mode is a blend of Japanese and Portuguese dub with English subtitles so that you know exactly what it is you're hearing. And it was quite an experience. It's beautiful to hear the native languages spoken in a way that naturally progresses and naturally occurs in the game. Line delivery feels almost like, and I don't mean this to be stereotypical, but like an anime, delivered with emphasis and emotion and a great cadence. I enjoyed it all across the board. Now, the only issues I would say I have with audio would be when audio clips. And I'm not sure if that's a result of my Xbox Series X specifically. Sometimes I played the game with a Bluetooth headset and audio would clip or jump in and out. And I mean environmental audio, not so much character dialogue audio. And sometimes I would play on my TV. And even on my TV, sometimes the audio would clip in and out. I wasn't sure really by the end of it what the root cause was. So I can only assume that the game had something to do with it, given that I'm playing an earlier copy of the game. By the time you see these first impressions and you have the game in your hands, likely all of this will have been fixed. They're audio glitches. They're not, we need to rework the game from scratch type of situations, right? Audio, 2 thumbs up as far as I'm concerned. So as far as Assassin's Creed Shadows, outside of it as a game and more so as a title from Ubisoft specifically, there's been a lot of controversy and noise, both about the game and the company. Just as a side note, it's quite something to listen to people complain about Yasuke, specifically him taking any sort of role in AC Shadows to make comments about his race as if that's the sole reason for why he was elected to play as one of the 2 main characters in the game. Just like any game, if you don't like a game for whatever reason, or you don't like the premise or dislike it on that basis, it's as simple as not buying it. Your complaints about the game to people who seemed actually interested in the actual gameplay or the plot or the core gameplay loop has no bearing in a meaningful way. It doesn't really help make a case for why you should or should not play the game. It really only serves to make you seem like a hater for, I mean, insert your reason really. Yasuke wasn't a full samurai. Okay, I didn't realize we were learning actual Japanese history in this game. Was he a guy who came as an ex-slave and became a significant figure in Japanese history? Yeah, so then what are we complaining about? If you don't hate the game, but you just take issues with his selection as a main character for the game, 1 of 2 for the record, when there are so many notable Japanese characters to draw from, I understand where you're coming from. But consider this. From a historical perspective, how peculiar and unique is Yasuke's existence in Japan as an ex-slave that learned Japanese, that rose up to work under a literal Japanese lord, and what he ended up accomplishing during that time in Japanese society. Whether you agree or disagree that he was a full samurai or a retainer or whatever the case is, either way, it's a really interesting plot point to think about. I think those complaints, as well as the complaints about a woman being a main character, are equally as unfounded in anything legitimate, and I won't grant it the legitimacy by addressing it. Just keep in mind, Split Fiction came out literally the last week and sold 2 million copies in a week, and that was with 2 female main characters. And Assassin's Creed itself has already had so many female main characters as well. Cassandra, Evie, the list goes on and on. So at this point, I have about 20 hours of time with Assassin's Creed Shadows on Xbox. And overall, I say I really enjoyed my time with the game, but really my enjoyment started at the 5-hour mark or so, when I really started getting the groove of the core gameplay loop and started really hitting my stride with playing the game and exploring and getting into combat, getting into shenanigans and all that other stuff. This far into the game, I would say it's about an 8 or 8.5 out of 10. It's a solid adventure that so far plays heavier into the Shadows portion than the Assassin's Creed portion of the title, but again, I just may not be far enough in the story for that determination to be accurate for the whole game. I'm a big fan and an incredibly loud proponent of the inclusion of the modern day plot. And so far this deep into the game, it has been at minimum relegated to the background or at maximum held off for a later portion of the game. And in either case, I'm not so much a fan of that idea. I love hearing about how the effects of Yasuke or Naoya or Ezio or Connor or Arno, any of these characters that took place in their own respective times and eras, had events that occurred that affected the modern day plot. Our Desmonds of the world, our Layla Hassans of the world, and hopefully another character upcoming as well. But we'll find out. The game is a decent play. I think it's worth the buy. And personally, as always, if you don't like a game, don't buy it. But if anything in the gameplay footage, the previews, the video, whether mine or somebody else's, interests you, piqued your interest, give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? So if you stuck around for this long in the video, first of all, thank you for checking it out. I do appreciate all the support on the First Impressions series videos, on the other gameplay videos, on my live streams, anywhere that you see me, whether you're on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch. I do appreciate you just giving me a chance to see what I got to offer. And I do appreciate you listening to me yap. I love Assassin's Creed and I love yapping. So this is always a good opportunity to hit two birds with one stone. Either way, if you want to catch more of me, or catch more videos, whatever the case is, you can find me live on Twitch and YouTube Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time until about 11 p.m. midnight, depending on the workday, right? Otherwise, you can catch me here on youtube.com/Charius, where you can find all of my other videos as well. I'll be transitioning as time goes on to doing more and more video and content about Assassin's Creed Shadows, but also in the longer run, more video essays, more in-depth breakdowns of the specific systems and mechanics in different video games, and just general commentary about that. But boy, do I have a backlog of Twitch videos and clips and highlights to edit as well. So be on the lookout. Easily, by the time I stop streaming, I'm going to have a lot of things to put out there for you to catch up on. So hopefully you enjoy that, or if you've been watching streams, hopefully you enjoy what's to come. Either way, until next video, be blessed, never stressed, packing, never lacking, good, never hood, be about it, never without it. And for me, and my cat Coco off screen here, take care. We'll see you next time. Peace.